Adam, at the age of 700, calls his son Seth to his side. His voice is grave, his eyes hold the weight of a secret that has been buried for centuries. This is not the story of creation that the world has been told. It's not the sanitized, simple narrative that has been fed to generations. No, this is the real story. And it's nothing like what you've heard before. Adam reveals that before he and Eve were trapped in the material world, they existed as beings of pure light. They were not the first humans formed from the dust of the earth, as later traditions would claim. Instead, they belonged to a higher realm, an eternal existence of knowledge and radiance. They were divine, incorruptible, part of a reality that transcended physical form. But then something happened, something catastrophic. They were cast down. And it wasn't the Almighty God who did this. It was a lesser being, a creator who was powerful but deeply flawed. A being who had seized control of a part of existence and set himself up as a god. This being, Adam says, is not the true source of all things, not the supreme, unknowable God. He is an imposter, a creator, yes, but not the ultimate creator. He formed the material world, but it was not out of pure divine intent. It was out of arrogance. Out of a desire to rule, to dominate, to control. And so, when Adam and Eve were cast into this world, they lost their brilliance, their connection to the higher realms. They were forced into physical bodies, made of flesh and bone, subject to pain, suffering, and, most importantly, death. The creator of this world, the one later worshipped as the highest God, did not free them, he imprisoned them. Adam describes how this creator, this false God, declared himself the only God and demanded obedience. He set up rulers, Archons, powerful spiritual entities that ensured no one would escape his dominion. The world became a system, a trap designed to keep humanity blind and ignorant of its true origins. Knowledge was dangerous. Wisdom was the enemy. And so, a deception was born, a lie that would stretch across millennia, that the God of this world was the only God, that humans were created as mere servants, and that they should obey without question. But Adam knows the truth. He remembers what was lost. He remembers the time before, when he and Eve were not flesh-bound, not limited by the constraints of this broken reality. And he remembers the betrayal, the moment when they were deceived, when they were told that their fall was their own fault. That they had sinned. That they had disobeyed. But what if that wasn't the case? What if eating from the tree wasn't the transgression, but the first step toward regaining their lost knowledge? What if the real crime was not rebellion, but awakening? Seth listens in silence as Adam tells him that the rulers of this world fear one thing above all, knowledge. Not the knowledge of science or civilization, but the knowledge of humanity's true nature. The understanding that they are more than flesh, more than temporary beings born to serve. This is why religions, institutions, and governments have always pushed obedience over inquiry. Why they have rewritten history to fit their narrative. Why they have burned books, silenced voices, and crushed those who dared to ask too many questions. Because if people knew, if they truly understood, then the system would crumble. But there is hope. Adam speaks of a prophecy of a time when humanity will remember, when the truth will break through the layers of deception. He warns Seth that the false god will not allow this knowledge to spread easily. He will send his agents to destroy it, to erase it from history. But for now, Adam entrusts this knowledge to his son. Because the time will come when someone, a liberator, an illuminator, will bring this truth back into the world. And when that happens, everything will change. Seth listens, taking in every word his father speaks. But Adam isn't finished. There's more. And this part, it changes everything. Because Adam isn't just telling his son about the past. He's revealing the future. A future that the rulers of this world do not want anyone to know. Adam speaks of a figure. A liberator. Someone who will come long after his time, someone who will challenge the false god and his system of control. He calls this figure the Illuminator. And he makes one thing very clear, this being will not come from the false god's realm. He will not be born of flesh in the way that humans have been trapped in the cycle of life and death. He will not be sent by the creator of this broken world. No, he will come from above, from the realm that Adam and Eve were exiled from. He will descend into this corrupted world, not to rule it, not to conquer it, but to expose it. Adam warns that when the Illuminator arrives, the rulers of this world will panic. They will do everything in their power to silence him, because his mere presence threatens their entire system. This world runs on ignorance. It is held together by deception. The moment people realize that they have been trapped, that they were never meant to be enslaved by this false god, the entire structure collapses. And that's why they will twist the truth about the Illuminator. They will create false stories, false teachings. They will spread lies about who he is, why he came, and what his message really was. And here's the shocking part: Adam already knows how they'll do it. He describes, with unsettling accuracy, how history will be rewritten. How different nations and rulers will take the story of the Illuminator and reshape it to fit their own agendas. He sees multiple versions of the same figure emerging, each one altered just enough to confuse people. Some will say he is a prophet, some will say he is a god, some will say he is just a man. But no one will be allowed to say what he really is: a disruptor. A being from outside this system, sent to break it apart. Adam's vision shows him that people will argue over the details of the Illuminator's life, over his name, over where he came from, over what he truly taught. Some will build entire religions around him, but instead of spreading his true message, they will turn it into another tool of control. The same rulers who once feared him will twist his words, using them to keep humanity just as blind, just as submissive as before. And for most people, the truth will be buried, hidden beneath layers of dogma, rituals, and rewritten history. But there will be those who see through it, those who recognize the deception. Adam describes them as the generation without a king, people who do not bow to the rulers of this world, who do not accept authority blindly. These are the ones who will remember, who will search for the truth buried beneath centuries of manipulation. And when they find it, the false god's grip on this world will begin to weaken. Adam's words carry a warning: when the Illuminator comes, the world will not welcome him. The rulers will call him a liar, a heretic, a danger to society. They will try to erase him, to suppress his knowledge. And even after he is gone, they will spend centuries trying to rewrite what he truly was. But the truth will never disappear completely. It will survive in whispers, in hidden texts, in those who refuse to accept the lies. Because the false god may control this world, but he does not control everything. The real power, the real truth, comes from beyond his reach. And one day, it will break through. Adam shifts in his place, his voice dropping lower. There is another secret, one that very few would ever know. The birth of Seth was not ordinary. It was not just another human child being brought into the world. There was interference. A force from beyond this realm stepped in. And the rulers of this world, the ones who claimed to be gods, were terrified. Adam explains that after he and Eve were cast into the material world, something was different. Their first two sons, Cain and Abel, were born into the system of the false god. Their destinies were already set. Cain, the violent one, was an instrument of chaos. Abel, the innocent one, was a victim, a pawn in the game. But when Abel was gone and Cain was cursed, something else happened, something that shouldn't have been possible. Three mysterious beings appeared. Not the Archons, not the rulers of this world, but something else. They were from the higher realm, the place Adam and Eve had been severed from. They were luminous, beyond physical form, beyond the corruption of this world. And they had one purpose: to ensure that at least one bloodline would carry the truth. Adam describes their presence as overwhelming. He couldn't see them fully, but he could feel them, hear them. They were not bound by the rules of this world. They spoke of the true God, the one beyond the false creator. They told Adam that his line must not be lost, that the knowledge of the higher realm had to survive. Eve was chosen to bear another son, but this time, the process was different. Seth's birth was unlike any other. There was no interference from the false god, no influence from the Archons. It was pure. His essence was not fully trapped in the material world the way other humans were. He carried something in his very being that the rulers of this world couldn't touch, a direct connection to the knowledge that had been taken from Adam and Eve. He was, in a way, a living link to the truth. And the rulers knew it. They saw it the moment he was born. They knew this was a threat. If Seth's lineage continued, there would always be those who questioned, those who sought the truth, those who refused to be controlled. This wasn't just about one child. It was about preventing an entire bloodline that could one day undo everything the false god had built. Adam describes how the Archons tried to interfere. They sent their agents, their followers, to watch Seth, to manipulate events, to steer history in a way that would make his descendants forget who they were. They introduced distractions, conflicts, systems of control, anything to drown out the truth. And for the most part, they succeeded. Over generations, the knowledge became fragmented. It turned into myths, into half-truths, into stories that were rewritten again and again to serve the ruler's agenda. Adam takes a deep breath. His time is running out, but there's something more, something Seth needs to know. The rulers of this world, the Archons, they are not gods. They never were. They are ancient entities, but they are not the true creators. They are imposters, beings that seized control of this material realm and set themselves up as divine. And the greatest trick they ever pulled was convincing humanity to worship them. Adam describes how these rulers came into power. Before the creation of this physical world, there was only the higher realm, a place of pure knowledge and unfiltered existence. The true God, the one beyond all things, did not create in the way humans understand. There were no limits, no hierarchies, no rulers demanding submission. But then something changed. A rogue being, an arrogant force that called itself the Creator, emerged from the lower regions of existence. This being, later known as the Demiurge, was not omniscient, not all-powerful, but deeply ambitious. It wanted to create something of its own, something it could control. So it formed this world, not out of love, not out of divine wisdom, but out of ignorance. A flawed creation made by a flawed being. And to maintain control, it established a system, the hierarchy of Archons, rulers who would enforce its authority. These Archons were not angels. They were enforcers, barriers between humanity and the truth. They ensured that no one could escape the prison of the material world. And they fed off one thing, obedience. Adam explains that these rulers did not create humanity in the way people were led to believe. The first humans, Adam and Eve, already existed in a higher realm before they were cast down. They were tricked, trapped in physical bodies, and then manipulated into thinking they were the creations of the Demiurge. And from that moment on, history was rewritten to keep humanity blind. The rulers established religions, laws, and social structures, all designed to keep people in submission. The Archons work through deception. They are the voices behind false prophets, the hands that shape institutions of power, the ones who twist history to maintain control. They give humanity just enough knowledge to function, but never enough to break free. They reward blind faith and punish those who ask too many questions. And when individuals throughout history have tried to expose them, they have been silenced, branded as heretics, outcasts, or lunatics. Adam's message to Seth is clear: the world is not what it seems. Everything people have been taught about creation, about their place in existence, has been manipulated. The rulers fear one thing above all: awareness. If people realize they were never meant to be slaves, if they remember the truth of their origins, the system collapses. The power of the Archons is built on illusion. And illusions only hold as long as no one looks too closely. But Adam warns Seth that uncovering the truth comes at a price. The Archons do not tolerate defiance. They will target those who seek knowledge, using every tool at their disposal to keep them silent. They have controlled history for thousands of years, and they are not about to let go without a fight. The battle is not fought with weapons, but with understanding. And the first step is seeing through the lie. Adam's voice hardens. He knows that once Seth understands the truth, there's no turning back. The rulers of this world, the Archons, have spent ages perfecting their system of control. And one of their greatest weapons? Time itself. The illusion of history, the rewriting of the past, the careful manipulation of records, all designed to make sure no one ever sees the full picture. The past is not what people believe it to be. The rulers have altered it, reshaped it, and in many cases, erased entire civilizations that posed a threat to their dominance. Adam warns Seth that history is a battleground, and the war has been waged for millennia. Every empire, every religion, every law enforced across human existence, it all traces back to the same source. The Archons infiltrate human leadership, ensuring that only those who serve their system rise to power. Those who resist? They vanish. Their legacies are buried, their teachings corrupted, their names erased. Adam speaks of the first generations after his exile. They were not primitive. The early descendants of Seth carried knowledge, true knowledge, of the higher realm. They knew the rulers of this world were impostors. They preserved the secrets of their origins. And for a time, there was hope. They built structures aligned with celestial patterns, encoded messages in stone, created symbols that carried warnings for future generations. But the Archons retaliated. They turned humans against each other, corrupted bloodlines, and introduced false gods to replace the truth. The first wars were not about land or resources, they were about control of knowledge. The great floods, the burning of libraries, the destruction of entire cultures, none of it was random. Each event was carefully orchestrated to reset history, to wipe the slate clean and ensure that humanity remained blind. The rulers erased civilizations that remembered too much, replacing them with stories that fit their narrative. And every time humanity reached a point where they could reclaim the truth, a new catastrophe would strike. Wars, plagues, collapses, always ensuring that the survivors were left scrambling to rebuild, with no memory of what came before. Even the records that survived have been tampered with. The texts that people believe to be sacred have been rewritten by the very forces they warn against. Hidden within them are fragments of truth, but they are surrounded by distortions, designed to mislead. The Archons allow people to seek knowledge, but only within boundaries they control. They encourage debate, but only between ideas they have already corrupted. They do not fear blind belief, they fear the ones who look beyond what has been given to them. Adam's warning to Seth is clear: time is the greatest deception of all. What people call history is a carefully constructed illusion, a series of controlled resets to keep them from ever discovering who they truly are. The rulers know that humanity is capable of breaking free, and they will do anything to prevent it. The past is not lost, but it has been hidden. And those who seek it must be prepared to face the forces that have spent eternity trying to keep it buried. Adam's voice becomes urgent. He knows that what he's about to reveal is dangerous knowledge, something the rulers of this world have spent millennia trying to bury. He tells Seth that humanity was never meant to be enslaved in this physical world. The prison of flesh, the cycle of birth and death, the constant suffering, it was all designed to trap human souls, to keep them from remembering what they truly are. The false god, the Demiurge, and his Archons created this world not as an act of divine love, but as an act of containment. The human soul was never meant to be here. It belongs to the higher realm, the place beyond matter, beyond time. But the rulers needed energy, control, and submission. They needed worship. So they devised the greatest deception, convincing humanity that this world is all there is. That the only escape is through obedience, servitude, and the acceptance of suffering. Adam tells Seth that every human carries a fragment of the divine, a spark from the higher realm that the rulers cannot fully suppress. This is what makes humans unique. But it's also what makes them targets. The rulers designed a physical world to be a distraction, filled with endless cycles of struggle, conflict, and temptation. They keep humanity focused on survival, on trivial desires, on meaningless divisions, so that no one ever has the time, or the clarity, to see the truth. The greatest trick the rulers ever played was making humanity believe that the physical body is all that exists. They corrupted the very idea of the soul, turning it into something vague, something tied to their systems of control. They created doctrines that taught people to fear punishment, to seek salvation only through the institutions they control. But Adam makes one thing clear: these rulers are not the true judges of human souls. They have no power beyond this world. Their authority is a lie. He tells Seth that when a person dies, the rulers are waiting. They appear as beings of light, as divine figures, as familiar voices. They try to lure the soul back into their system, convincing it to reincarnate, to return to the cycle of control. They erase memories, reset identities, and send souls back into new bodies, ensuring that humanity never realizes it's trapped. This is why people are born without memory of their past lives. The system is designed to keep them ignorant. But there is a way out. Adam tells Seth that those who recognize the illusion can break free. The rulers rely on deception, on tricking souls into submission. But if a soul sees through the illusion, if it refuses to obey, refuses to be led back into the cycle, it can escape. It can return to the higher realm, beyond the reach of the false god. Adam leans in, lowering his voice. What he's about to say is something almost no one knows, something the rulers have erased from history. The Archons were never invincible. There was a time when humanity fought back, when certain individuals broke through the deception and challenged their control. These weren't just rebels or philosophers questioning authority. These were people who had seen through the illusion entirely. They knew the nature of the prison. They knew how the rulers operated. And they found ways to resist. Some of these individuals disappeared without a trace. Others were turned into myths, their real stories distorted beyond recognition. The rulers couldn't allow humanity to know that escape was possible. So they rewrote history, branding these people as madmen, sorcerers, or dangerous heretics. They made sure their teachings were either lost or twisted into something that reinforced the very system they were trying to destroy. But Adam remembers. He speaks of a time before the complete lockdown, before the rulers had perfected their methods of control. There were ancient civilizations that held the knowledge of escape. Not just fragments, not just hidden messages in texts, but actual methods of breaking free from the Archons' influence. They built structures aligned with cosmic forces, places where the barriers between this world and the higher realm were thinner. They understood the true nature of the human soul, and they passed this knowledge on carefully, secretly, to those who were ready. The rulers responded with force. Entire cultures were wiped out, their cities swallowed by the earth, their teachings burned. They created new belief systems to replace the lost ones, systems that maintained obedience instead of liberation. But traces remain. Symbols carved into stone, forbidden texts hidden in secret archives, oral traditions passed down through generations despite the risks. If one looks carefully, the evidence is still there. Adam tells Seth that these ancient resistances weren't just spiritual, they were direct confrontations with the rulers themselves. There were those who had learned how to see the Archons, how to recognize their influence, and even how to weaken them. The rulers rely on deception, on humanity's ignorance. But when they are exposed, when their presence is recognized and their tricks no longer work, they lose their power. There were moments in history when people achieved this on a large scale. Brief moments when the rulers' control faltered. But each time, they retaliated, resetting civilization, rewriting history, making sure no one remembered what had happened. Adam looks at Seth with intensity. There is something else, something even more dangerous than the rulers themselves. The Archons, the false god, the system of control, these are only part of the equation. The real reason the rulers are so desperate to keep humanity trapped is because of what happens when a soul truly breaks free. There is something beyond their reach, something they fear more than rebellion, more than knowledge, more than anything. Adam speaks of the others. Beings who were never part of the Archons' deception, never bound by the prison of matter. They exist outside this system, beyond the false layers of reality the rulers have constructed. These beings do not control, do not demand worship, do not seek power. But they watch. They wait. They know what has been done to humanity. And they know that, eventually, some will escape. The rulers have spent ages trying to sever humanity's connection to them. Every doctrine, every rewritten text, every distortion of history has been designed to erase their existence from memory. Why? Because when a soul remembers, when it truly wakes up, it can call out to them. And when that happens, the rulers lose their grip. This is why certain individuals throughout history have vanished without explanation. Not because they were killed, not because they failed, but because they succeeded. They broke free. And the rulers had no power to stop them. The others have left messages. Not in the texts controlled by the rulers, not in the institutions designed to mislead, but in the places the rulers cannot reach. In dreams. In visions. In the moments between life and death, when the illusions of the physical world start to break down. Those who are truly seeking will find them, not through blind belief, not through following another system of control, but through direct experience. The rulers know this, and they fear it more than anything. Adam warned Seth that once this knowledge is understood, there is no turning back. The rulers will try to suppress it. They will attack, manipulate, and deceive. But they cannot erase the truth entirely. The others are watching. They have always been watching. And they are waiting for those who are ready to see.